I felt humiliation crawl under my skin for the first time in my life, as my entire office stood around the birthday cake, laughing and shouting, 40 and still single. Kevin, when are you getting married? My heart pounded so hard I thought everyone could hear it. I'm an Omega, and at this age I'm still a virgin. Nobody knew that, but I felt like they all did somehow. Every joke, every snide comment pierced through my chest like tiny needles. I took a small piece of cake and forced a smile, thanking them. But inside I was falling apart. The cake tasted like cardboard in my mouth. My coworker Sarah leaned in with her usual smirk and whispered, "Don't worry, Kevin. Maybe next year will be different." The pity in her voice made it worse. I nodded and excused myself, retreating to my cubicle where I could breathe without feeling their eyes on me. The rest of the afternoon dragged on endlessly, each minute feeling like an hour. When evening finally came, I gathered my things and left the building without saying goodbye to anyone. The city streets were bustling with people heading home, couples walking hand in hand, friends laughing together. I felt invisible among them, just another lonely face in the crowd. A light rain began to fall, and the yellow glow of streetlights reflected off the wet pavement. I pulled my jacket tighter and kept walking, lost in my thoughts. Today's humiliation, their laughter, my loneliness, everything swirled in my mind like a storm. Then suddenly, a black SUV pulled up right in front of me, blocking my path. My heart jumped into my throat. The door opened and a man stepped out, tall, intimidating, wrapped in an expensive suit that looked like it cost more than my monthly salary. His presence felt heavy, oppressive even, making it hard for me to breathe. He was an alpha, that much was clear from his scent, dark cedar mixed with raw power that hit me like a wave. I tried to step back, but he moved closer. "Kevin Hayes?" His voice was low, almost a growl, sending shivers down my spine. I could only nod. He smiled, but it wasn't friendly, it was dangerous and strangely attractive at the same time. "My name is Silas Kane. I've been looking for you for quite some time." My mind went blank. Looking for me? Why? Nobody ever looked for me. Silas reached out and grabbed my wrist, his fingers pressing against my pulse point. My entire body felt like it was on fire from that simple touch. "Your scent? Honey lavender," exactly as I was told. I didn't understand what he meant. He leaned in closer, bringing his face near my neck, and took a deep breath. My body froze completely. "You belong to me now, Kevin. Nobody else can touch you anymore." I tried to pull my hand away. I don't know you. Please let me go." But Silas's grip only tightened. "You'll get to know me. Your brother Coulter took a very large debt from me, and then he ran away. So now, you're the payment." Those words hit me like a physical blow. My brother? A debt? I didn't understand anything. Coulter never mentioned anything to me. Before I could process what was happening, Silas pushed me into the car. Inside, there were leather seats and a faint smell of cigars. He sat across from me, his cold eyes studying me as he spoke. "Don't even think about running. Your entire life is under my control now." I was shaking with fear, but there was also a strange feeling, like someone was finally taking me seriously, like I mattered to someone, and thinking that made tears well up in my eyes because this feeling was wrong. Completely wrong. The car started moving and I stared out the window, watching my old life disappear behind me. Everything I knew, my small apartment, my routine, my quiet existence, all of it was fading away. One moment had changed my entire world. "How much does he owe you?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. Silas tilted his head, studying me with those penetrating eyes. $3 million. The number made my stomach drop. That was impossible. I could never pay that back. Not in a lifetime. What are you going to do with me?" I asked, afraid of the answer. Silas leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, bringing himself closer to me. "That depends entirely on you, Kevin. You could make this difficult, or you could accept your new reality. Either way, you're mine now." His words should have terrified me, but instead they did something else. Something I didn't want to acknowledge. My Omega instincts were responding to him, to his dominance, to his alpha presence. I hated myself for it. How could my body betray me like this? We drove for what felt like hours, leaving the city behind. The buildings gave way to trees, and eventually we turned onto a private road. In the darkness, I could see the outline of a massive estate ahead. Gates opened automatically as we approached, and the SUV rolled through onto a long driveway lined with manicured gardens. "Welcome to your new home," Silas said, his voice carrying a note of finality that made everything feel terribly real. This wasn't a nightmare I would wake up from. This was actually happening. As the car stopped in front of a huge mansion, I felt my last bit of hope slip away. The building was enormous, intimidating, beautiful in a cold way. Security personnel were everywhere, their eyes following our movements. Silas opened my door himself and extended his hand. "Come." I hesitated, looking at his hand, then at his face. In the dim light from the mansion's entrance, his features seemed carved from stone. Sharp jawline, intense eyes, lips pressed into a firm line. He wasn't asking. He was commanding. Slowly, I placed my hand in his, and he pulled me out of the car effortlessly. His hand was warm, strong, and it completely engulfed mine. As we walked toward the entrance, I realized that my 40th birthday, the day I thought couldn't get any worse, had become the day my entire existence changed. I was no longer Kevin Hayes, the forgettable office worker. I was now Kevin Hayes, the captive Omega of a Mafia alpha boss. And terrifyingly, part of me wondered if this was the first time in 40 years that I truly felt alive. When we passed through the mansion gates, I was stunned into silence. This wasn't just a house. It was a fortress. High walls surrounded the property. Security cameras were positioned at every angle, and armed guards patrolled the grounds. Silas led me out of the car and into the building. I was still in shock, unable to comprehend if this was real or some terrible dream. The interior was even more overwhelming. Crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings, sparkling like stars. Marble floors gleamed like mirrors beneath my feet. Staff members moved silently through hallways, performing their duties without making eye contact. Everything screamed wealth and power. A woman in a neat uniform appeared. "Show Mr. Hayes to the East Wing guest suite," Silas instructed. She nodded and gestured for me to follow. We climbed a grand staircase and walked down a long corridor lined with expensive artwork. Finally, she opened a door to reveal a bedroom that was bigger than my entire apartment. A king-sized bed dominated the space, covered in luxurious bedding. There was an attached bathroom with marble countertops and a shower that looked like it belonged in a spa. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the gardens below. It was beautiful. It was also a prison. Silas appeared in the doorway after the woman left. He stood there, arms crossed, watching me take in the room. "This is yours. Make yourself comfortable. If you need anything, there's a phone by the bed that connects to the staff." "But," he paused, his expression hardening, "don't try to leave. This house has security everywhere." I turned to face him, gathering what little courage I had left. "What about my job? My apartment? My things?" He stepped into the room, closing the distance between us. "Your job doesn't matter anymore. Your apartment has been handled. Your belongings will arrive tomorrow. This is your life now. You can't just take someone and—" He cut me off by placing a finger against my lips. The gesture was both intimate and threatening. "I can, and I did. The sooner you accept this, the easier it will be for you." Then he left, closing the door behind him. I heard a click but didn't know if it was locked. I spent that first night unable to sleep. The bed was too soft, the room too quiet, and my mind wouldn't stop racing. Thoughts of Coulter consumed me. Where was he? Why had he taken money from someone like Silas? We were brothers, but our relationship had become distant over the past 2 years. He'd said he was traveling for business, but now I understood he'd been running. Had he known this would happen to me? Had he cared? Morning came too quickly. I washed my face, stared at my reflection in the mirror, and barely recognized the person looking back. My eyes were red from crying. My face I changed into the clothes that had been left for me, simple but expensive, and made my way downstairs, following the sound of clinking silverware. The dining room was massive, with a table that could seat 20 people. Silas sat at the head, sunlight streaming through tall windows behind him, making him look even more imposing. He was reading something on his tablet, a cup of coffee in his other hand. When he noticed me, he set everything down. "Sit." It wasn't harsh, just matter of fact. I took a seat several chairs away from him. A staff member immediately appeared with a plate of breakfast: eggs, toast, fresh fruit, bacon. It looked delicious, but my stomach was in knots. Silas watched me with those calculating eyes. You should eat. Starving yourself won't change anything. I picked up my fork mechanically and took a small bite. He seemed satisfied and continued. I want to make sure you understand your situation clearly, Kevin. Your brother Coulter borrowed $3 million from me 2 years ago. He was supposed to invest it in a business venture and return it with interest. Instead, he disappeared. I swallowed hard. I had no idea. He never told me anything about this. Silas nodded. I believe you. You seem too genuine to be involved in his schemes. That's actually why I decided to collect payment through you instead of hunting him down and killing him. My fork clattered against the plate. Killing him? Silas's expression didn't change. This is business, Kevin. When someone steals from me, there are consequences. But when I discovered Coulter had a brother, an Omega brother, I saw a different opportunity. I'm not an opportunity, I'm a person. The words came out stronger than I expected. Silas actually smiled at that. Yes, you are. Which is exactly why I find you interesting. He stood and walked around the table until he was beside my chair. I tensed, not knowing what to expect. He reached out and tilted my chin up with his fingers, forcing me to meet his gaze. Let me make this clear. You can't pay back the debt with money. Your salary as an accountant wouldn't cover the interest in 10 lifetimes. So instead, you belong to me now. Your life, your time, your existence. All of it is mine. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to feel nothing but anger and fear. But when his fingers touched my skin, when his scent surrounded me, my Omega instincts reacted in ways I couldn't control. It made me furious with myself. Why was my body responding to him? Silas must have noticed something because his eyes darkened. He leaned closer, his thumb brushing across my lower lip. Interesting. You're 40 years old and nobody has ever touched you, have they? My face burned with embarrassment. How did he know? Your scent gives it away. Pure, untouched, innocent. It's rare. He released my chin and moved back to his chair, leaving me shaken. Finish your breakfast. We have things to discuss. I tried to eat, but every bite felt like sand in my mouth. The tension in the room was suffocating. What things? I finally asked. Silas set down his coffee cup. Rules. Boundaries. What I expect from you. First, you'll stay in this mansion. You're free to move around the property, but attempting to leave will have consequences. Second, you'll attend certain events with me when required. Third, you'll be respectful to the staff and me. And if I refuse? He laughed. But there was no humor in it. Then you'll learn very quickly that I'm not a patient man. But I don't think you'll refuse, Kevin. I think part of you is already curious about what this life could offer you. His words hit too close to home. I hated that he was right. Despite everything, despite the fear and confusion, there was a tiny part of me that felt seen for the first time in my life. A powerful Terra had noticed me, wanted me, claimed me. It was twisted and wrong, but it was also intoxicating. I want to contact my friends. Let them know I'm okay. Silas considered this. Your phone has been disconnected. If you want to send messages, you can, but they'll be monitored. None mentions of where you are or who you're with. It was better than nothing. At least people wouldn't think I'd disappeared completely. As I sat there in that enormous dining room eating breakfast with a Mafia boss, who now owned me, I realized my old life was truly over. The question was, what would this new life become? Several days passed in a strange routine. I spent most of my time in my room, reading books from Silas's extensive library or staring out the window at the gardens below. The staff treated me politely but kept their distance. Nobody told me much about Silas or what he did, though I could guess it was dangerous. He was rarely home, leaving early and returning late, sometimes not at all. I felt like a bird in a gilded cage, surrounded by luxury but completely trapped. Yet strangely, this mansion felt less lonely than my old apartment. At least here, people acknowledged my existence, even if it was just to bring me meals or ask if I needed fresh towels. One morning, everything changed. I was in the library, curled up in a leather armchair with a book, when I heard commotion downstairs. Raised voices, hurried footsteps, then silence. Curiosity got the better of me, and I ventured down to investigate. In the living room, I found Silas. His suit jacket was off, and his white shirt had dark stains on it. Blood. His breathing was heavy and there were cuts on his knuckles. When he saw me, something flickered in his eyes. Fear? Relief? I couldn't tell. It's not mine, he said immediately, reading the alarm on my face. His voice was tired but his posture remained strong. He walked toward me, and I instinctively backed up until I hit the wall. He stopped just inches away, close enough that his scent overwhelmed my senses. Are you afraid of me, Kevin? His question was quiet, almost vulnerable. I didn't know how to answer. Yes, I was afraid, but I was also drawn to him in ways I couldn't explain or control. I don't know what to feel, I admitted honestly. Silas reached up and grabbed my wrist, not roughly but firmly. Come with me. He led me to his private quarters, a place I hadn't been before. His room was masculine and minimalist, dominated by a huge bed and dark furniture. He went straight to the bathroom and started removing his shirt. I stood frozen in the doorway, unsure if I should leave or stay. When his shirt came off, I couldn't help but stare. His body was muscular, covered in scars that told stories of violence and survival. He caught me looking, and instead of being angry, he seemed pleased. Come here, he commanded softly. Against my better judgment, I stepped closer. He took my hand and placed it on his chest, right over his heart. It was beating fast, matching my own racing pulse. See? I'm just a man, Kevin. Flesh and blood, just like you. But he wasn't just a man. He was an alpha, powerful and dangerous, and I was completely at his mercy. His skin was warm under my palm and I could feel the strength in his muscles. Why are you showing me this? I whispered. Because I don't want to hide from you. I want you to see who I really am, the good and the bad. The violence that stains my hands and the man underneath, who's capable of more than bloodshed. His honesty surprised me. This wasn't what I expected from someone who'd kidnapped me. I gathered courage from somewhere deep inside. Then tell me why you won't let me go. I'm nobody special, just an ordinary Omega who's lived a boring life and never mattered to anyone. The words hurt to say out loud, but they were true. Silas's expression shifted, something dark and intense crossing his features. He cupped my face with both hands, forcing me to look directly at him. Stop saying that. You don't see yourself clearly at all. Your scent brings me peace in ways nothing else does. Your eyes hold an innocence I thought didn't exist anymore in this world. You matter more than you know. His words made my chest tight. Nobody had ever spoken to me like this. Nobody had ever looked at me like I was precious. Tears threatened to spill, but I blinked them back. This couldn't be real. It had to be manipulation. Some kind of game. But then Silas did something unexpected. He took my hand and pressed it harder against his chest. Feel that? My heart beats faster when you're near. You've gotten under my skin, Kevin, and I don't know what to do about it. Before I could respond, he pulled me against him, wrapping his arms around my waist. My face ended up pressed against his bare chest and his scent completely surrounded me. Musk and cedar and something uniquely him. My Omega instincts went into overdrive. I felt dizzy, overwhelmed, and despite everything, safe. Silas's hands moved to my lower back, holding me firmly. His lips were next to my ear when he spoke again. Your scent as a virgin Omega is addictive. I want to mark you, Kevin. I want to make you permanently mine. But I won't do it without your consent, no matter how badly I want it. Mark me? That meant claiming me as his Omega, bonding us together in a way that couldn't be undone. My mind screamed at me to push him away, to refuse, to maintain some dignity. But my body had other ideas. It melted against him, craving his touch, his warmth, his dominance. Silas pulled back slightly and tilted my face up. His lips hovered just above mine, so close I could feel his breath. Tell me to stop, Kevin. If you don't want this, say it now. But I couldn't speak. My throat was tight and my mind was a mess of conflicting emotions. Part of me did want this, wanted him, and that realization was terrifying. The moment stretched between us, heavy with tension and possibility. Then finally Silas stepped back, releasing me. I won't force you. When you're ready, you'll tell me yourself. He grabbed the clean shirt from his closet and put it on, effectively ending the intimate moment. I stood there feeling lost, my body still trembling from his proximity. He'd offered me something and then taken it away, leaving me confused and aching for something I shouldn't want. As he buttoned his shirt, he kept his eyes on me. You should go back to your room. Rest. We'll talk more later. I left quickly, practically running back to the safety of my bedroom. Once inside, I locked the door and leaned against it, trying to catch my breath. What had just happened? Why hadn't I pushed him away? Why had I wanted him to kiss me? That night, I lay in bed unable to sleep, replaying every moment in my mind. Silas's touch, his words, his scent, all of it haunted me. Something had fundamentally shifted between us. We both felt it, this pull that was growing stronger despite the circumstances. I realized with dawning horror that I was starting to care about him, starting to want this life, starting to imagine what it would be like to truly be his. And that thought scared me more than anything else, because once I admitted it to myself, there would be no going back. The invisible walls between captor and captive were crumbling, replaced by something far more dangerous, genuine attraction and the beginning of feelings I had no idea how to handle. Over the following weeks, something shifted between Silas and me. Our relationship evolved into something strange and undefined. He started spending more time at home, joining me for dinner occasionally, sharing fragments of his dangerous world. I found myself growing accustomed to his presence, even looking forward to those moments when he'd walk through the door. But then my body began changing in ways I didn't expect. Exhaustion hit me like a wave, making it difficult to get out of bed. My skin felt hypersensitive, as if everything burned at the slightest touch. When I woke up one morning drenched in sweat despite the air conditioning, I knew exactly what was happening. Heat. My first heat cycle. At 40 years old, it was finally happening. I'd never taken suppressants regularly because I never thought I'd need them. I'd convinced myself I was different somehow, that maybe I wouldn't experience this biological inevitability. How wrong I'd been. The intensity hit me like a freight train, and I realized why omegas feared going through heat alone. I locked myself in my bedroom, wrapping myself in blankets despite feeling like I was burning from the inside out. Every nerve ending felt raw and exposed. The slightest movement sent conflicting signals through my body, pain mixed with pleasure in ways that left me confused and frightened. I turned the air conditioning as cold as it would go, but nothing helped. Silas discovered my condition within hours. I heard his footsteps approaching my door, followed by his voice. "Kevin, open the door. You can't be alone right now." I couldn't respond. Fear paralyzed me because I knew what would happen if he entered. He was an alpha, and my heat would trigger his most primal instincts. The sound of a key turning in the lock made my heart race. He must have used a master key. When the door opened and Silas stepped inside, everything changed. His eyes darkened immediately, his pupils dilating as my scent hit him. His breathing became labored, and I watched him struggle for control. He crossed the room in 3 strides and dropped to his knees beside the bed. His face found my neck, and he inhaled deeply. "God, Kevin, your scent right now. I can barely control myself." I tried to push against his chest weakly. "Silas, please, you need to leave." But he didn't leave. Instead, he wrapped his arms around me carefully. "I won't abandon you during heat. It's dangerous for omegas to go through this alone. You're completely vulnerable. If another Eva caught your scent." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. What happened next surprised me more than anything. Silas left briefly and returned with cold water, ice packs and damp towels. He sat beside me on the bed and began tending to me with unexpected gentleness. Was this the same man who'd kidnapped me? The same mafia boss who ruled through fear and violence? His hand stroked through my hair, soothingly, helping me regulate my breathing when panic threatened to overwhelm me. Sometimes his control would slip. I'd feel him lean closer to my neck, breathing in my scent, but he'd always pull back, visibly restraining himself. Hours passed in a blur of discomfort and care. Then, in the middle of helping me drink water, Silas spoke words that shattered my world. "Kevin, there's something you need to know. Your brother Coulter, he's dead." The statement hit me like a physical blow. Even through the haze of heat, the pain cut through sharp and clear. I grabbed his collar with what little strength I had left. "What? You're lying." My voice cracked with emotion. Silas gently removed my hands from his shirt and held them. "I didn't hurt him. He fell into the hands of rival criminals while I was searching for him. By the time I tracked him down, it was already over. That's why I kept you here, to protect you from the same fate. Coulter crossed dangerous people, and when I learned he had a brother, I found you first before anyone else could. The news broke something inside me. My brother was gone. The only family I had left in this world had died without me even knowing. And here I was, trapped in this mansion because of debts he'd accumulated. Or was that still the only reason? Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. The grief mixed with the physical torment of heat created an overwhelming emotional storm. Silas pulled me against his chest, letting me sob while he continued stroking my hair. I'm genuinely sorry, Kevin. I want you safe. Protecting you has become my responsibility. And maybe it's become more than just responsibility. Those last words penetrated through my anguish. More than responsibility? What did that mean? As I cried against his chest, feeling his arms around me, something shifted in my understanding of our relationship. This wasn't just about debt anymore. Something real was developing between us, something neither of us had planned. My omega instincts, heightened by heat, pulled me toward him despite my grief. I wanted to push him away, wanted to hate him, but my body craved his presence, his touch, his protection. That night, as Silas stayed beside me, caring for me through the worst of my heat, I began to understand that my feelings for him were genuine. Whether he treated me well because I was his property or because he actually cared, I couldn't tell anymore. But lying there in his arms, feeling safe despite everything, I realized that part of me didn't want to know the answer, because acknowledging what this was becoming meant accepting that my heart was getting involved in a situation that had started with force and captivity. The heat lasted 3 days. 3 days of Silas never leaving my side, of him fighting his own instincts to keep me comfortable and safe. 3 days of blurred lines between captor and protector, between obligation and something that felt dangerously close to affection. When it finally ended, I felt exhausted but also changed. The bond between us had deepened in ways I couldn't explain. He'd seen me at my most vulnerable, and instead of taking advantage, he'd shown me a kind of care I'd never experienced before. As I drifted into actual sleep for the first time in days, Silas's arms still around me, I wondered if this was what it felt like to actually matter to someone. And that thought, more than anything else, terrified me, because mattering to someone like Silas Kane meant my heart was no longer safe. The man who'd stolen my freedom was slowly stealing something far more precious: my ability to imagine a life without him in it. When my heat finally subsided, my body felt weak but strangely peaceful. Silas had remained with me the entire time without crossing any lines. He'd simply cared for me, nothing more. That realization touched something deep inside me, because I'd never imagined anyone would do that for me. The next morning, I woke to find Silas sitting on the edge of the bed, watching me. His eyes held exhaustion but also a softness I hadn't seen before. "How are you feeling?" he asked quietly. I nodded. "Better. You took care of me. Thank you." Silas reached out and took my hand in his. "Kevin, I need to say something. Initially I saw you as payment for a debt, but now, you've become something else entirely. You become essential to me." My heart hammered in my chest. Was he really saying this? The weeks that followed brought unexpected changes. Silas began taking me out with him to dinners at exclusive restaurants, to business meetings where I sat quietly observing, even to the periphery of his operations where it was safe enough. I started understanding the man behind the reputation. His dangerous life wasn't motivated by cruelty or greed. It was about protection, about maintaining power to keep those under his care safe. And somehow, I'd been folded into that circle of protection. I was becoming part of his world in ways I'd never anticipated. One evening, he took me to a private restaurant that operated by invitation only. The place exuded elegance and discretion, exactly the kind of establishment where powerful people conducted business away from prying eyes. We sat at a secluded table, and Silas watched me over his wine glass with an intensity that made my breath catch. "You know, Kevin, I used to believe that emotional attachment was nothing but weakness, that caring for someone gave them power over you." He set his glass down and leaned forward. "Then you entered my life and completely changed that perspective." I felt my pulse quicken. "I'm not sure what you're trying to say, Silas." My voice came out uncertain, almost fearful of his answer. He reached across the table and captured my hand in his. "I'm saying that I've fallen in love with you, Kevin. For the first time in my life, I'm deeply attached to someone. The thought of existing without you feels impossible. Everything about you, your mannerisms, your reactions, your very essence, it drives me crazy in the best way possible. Tears filled my eyes immediately. Nobody had ever spoken to me like this. I'd spent 40 years being invisible, being the joke, being the person nobody took seriously. But here, across from this dangerous man, was somebody's entire world. I love you too, I whispered, my voice trembling. This is the first time I've ever felt this way about anyone. Silas stood and walked around the table. He cupped my face in his hands and pressed a kiss to my forehead, then looked into my eyes with devastating intensity. Then let me mark you, Kevin. Become mine permanently. Be my Omega. Nobody will ever be able to threaten you again, and I'll always be here beside you. Fear and anticipation warred inside me, but I nodded, because I knew now that my life would only feel complete with Silas in it. He helped me up, and we left the restaurant, driving back to the mansion in charged silence. Throughout the entire journey, his hand held mine tightly, as if reassuring me that everything would be all right. When we reached his private quarters, he paused. Kevin, if you have any doubts at all, we can stop right now. I refused to pressure you into this, but I reached up and touched his face. I want to stay with you. Permanently. Relief and love flooded his expression. He removed his jacket and moved closer. Leading me to the bed, he sat me down gently and brushed his fingers against my neck, right over my scent gland. This will hurt, Kevin, but it means I'll keep you as mine forever. I nodded my agreement. When his teeth pierced my skin, I experienced a peculiar combination of pain and profound peace. My entire body connected with Silas on a level I'd never imagined possible. A bond that was permanent and unbreakable. Our scents mingled together, becoming inseparable. I was officially his Omega now. The overwhelming nature of it brought tears to my eyes, but these were tears of joy. Silas held me tightly and whispered, "You're exclusively mine now, forever." He wiped my tears away with his thumbs and kissed me, gently and filled with love. That night marked the beginning of a relationship, a new journey that was a first for both of us. Over the following days, I noticed the mark on my neck every time I looked in the mirror. It was visible proof that I belonged to someone, that I mattered. The staff treated me differently now too, with more respect, as if my status had fundamentally changed. Silas became more openly affectionate. He'd find me throughout the day, just to touch the mark, to reassure himself that I was real and his self. At night he'd hold me close and I'd fall foul listening to his heartbeat. The most comforting sound I'd ever known. But it wasn't just physical. We talked for hours about everything. His childhood, my lonely years, our fears, our hopes. I learned about the scars on his body, each one with its own story of survival. He learned about my quiet life of invisibility, about feeling like a ghost in my own existence. "You're not invisible anymore," he told me one night as we lay in bed. "You're the most visible thing in my world. Everything I do, every decision I make, I consider how it affects you." I traced the mark on my neck absently. I never thought anyone would want me like this. I'd given up on the idea of mattering to someone. Silas turned to face me fully, his eyes serious. "You matter more than you'll ever understand. You've become the center of my universe, Kevin." That's not something I say lightly. As I fell asleep that night, wrapped in his arms with his mark on my neck, I realized that my life had become something I'd never dared dream about. I'd gone from being nobody to being everything to someone. And that someone was willing to face down the world to keep me safe. The bond mark pulsed gently, a constant reminder of the connection we now shared. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional, spiritual, permanent. I was his and he was mine, and somehow that felt more right than anything ever had before. Several months passed and my life transformed completely. As Silas's officially bonded Omega, I'd become an integral part of his world. Living with him, being part of his universe, this had become my new reality. His criminal activities still frightened me sometimes, but I understood now that everything he did served to protect his people. And I was among those people. Actually, I was closest to him. My daily routine had evolved significantly. I helped manage the mansion, treated the staff with kindness, and created a comfortable home environment for Silas. These small contributions brought me genuine happiness. For the first time in my life, I had purpose and meaning. One morning I was in the kitchen preparing breakfast when Silas approached from behind, wrapping his arms around my waist. "Good morning, my Omega," he said with playful affection in his voice. I smiled. "Good morning, my Alpha." This simple moment felt so perfect that I wondered if I was still dreaming. He kissed the mark on my neck and I shivered from the sensation. But our happiness was interrupted violently. One afternoon, Silas's rivals launched an attack on the mansion. It was their revenge scheme, apparently. The sound of gunfire erupted and chaos descended instantly. I was in the kitchen when it began. Silas appeared immediately, gun in hand, his expression deadly serious. "Kevin, come with me. Right now." He pulled me through the mansion to a reinforced panic room in the basement. "Stay here, Kevin. I'll handle this situation. You won't be harmed, I promise." Fear gripped me, but I nodded. As he turned to leave, I grabbed his hand. "Silas, please be careful." He cupped my face and kissed me hard. "I'll return to you always." Alone in that small, secure room, I listened to the sounds of violence above. Gunshots, shouting, things breaking. Every second felt like an eternity. I could only pray that Silas would be all right, because he'd become my entire life, my everything. When the noise finally stopped and the door opened, Silas stood there. He had minor injuries, some cuts and bruises, but he was alive. I ran to him and he caught me in his arms. He buried his face in my neck. "I almost lost you today." The thought alone stopped my heart. "If they'd gotten to you," I held his face in my hands. "I'm not going anywhere, Silas. You're mine and I'm yours. Always." He kissed me deeply, intensely enough that my entire body melted. "I'll never let you go, Kevin. You're my life." I rested my head against his chest and listened to his heartbeat. That sound provided me with more comfort than anything else in the world. I was safe now, with my Alpha. A few weeks later, I noticed strange changes in my body. Morning nausea became routine, and my scent altered slightly. Silas noticed too. He took me to see a doctor. When the doctor ran tests, the results came back. I was pregnant. Silas's child was growing inside me. When I told him, the expression on his face became something I'd never forget. First shock, then pure, unfiltered joy. He lifted me and spun me around. "Kevin, you're making me a father. This is perfect. You, me, and now our baby." He set me down carefully and kissed my hand. "I'll protect both you and our child forever." The pregnancy brought new dimensions to our relationship. Silas became even more protective, almost overbearing sometimes, but I understood it came from love. He'd place his hand on my stomach and talk to our unborn child, telling stories about the life we'd build together. The mansion staff doted on me, making sure I had everything I needed. Silas reduced his dangerous activities, delegating more to trusted lieutenants so he could spend time at home. We transformed one of the rooms into a nursery, painting walls and assembling furniture together. "What should we name them?" I asked one evening as we sat in the nursery, surrounded by baby supplies. Silas considered thoughtfully. "Something that represents new beginnings. Because that's what you gave me. A completely new life." As my pregnancy progressed, I often reflected on the journey that brought me here. From that humiliating 40th birthday party to this moment sitting in a nursery with the man I loved, waiting for our child seemed impossible. Yet here I was, living proof that life could change dramatically when you least expected it. One evening, Silas took me to our favorite spot in the garden, where we could watch the sunset. He held me close and said, "Kevin, you're my obsession, my love, and now my entire future. I have everything I never knew I wanted. I love you." I smiled and replied, "I love you too, Silas. Forever." Sitting there watching the sunset, I realized that life sometimes brings us to people who are meant to be our destiny. No matter how things begin, whether through force, tragedy, or chance, what matters is how love transforms everything. Our ending was perfect. Forever his. Forever mine. I was no longer the 40-year-old virgin Omega that everyone mocked and dismissed. I was loved, protected, cherished, and about to become a parent. Silas had given me things I never dared dream possible: worth, purpose, family, and unconditional love. The baby kicked against my stomach, and Silas's hand immediately moved to feel it. His eyes lit up with wonder. "They're strong," he said with pride. "Just like their carrier." I laughed. or just like their father, stubborn and determined. As darkness fell and stars appeared above us, I understood that this was my happy ending. Not the one I'd imagined during all those lonely years, but something better. Something real. Something worth every moment of fear and uncertainty that had led me here. The mark on my neck pulsed warmly. Our bond stronger than ever. Our child grew inside me, proof of the love we shared. And Silas held me like I was the most precious thing in his world. Because to him, this was my life now. Not perfect, not without danger, but filled with more love than I'd ever known existed. And as I drifted to sleep in Silas's arms that night, I knew with absolute certainty that I was exactly where I belonged. Forever his, forever mine, forever loved.